Welcome to a presentation on the Divine Pattern, Unifying Western Astrology and Eastern Acupuncture. My name is Edward Lambert, and this is the work of my life. So I'm going to be showing you the beating heart that unifies the elements in wise harmony. Here's a picture of what I'm going to present to you. It may look complicated, it may look complex, but it is a jewel that has a structure. And it is the structure at the heart of astrology and acupuncture. And it beats, it has a light, it has a consciousness. And we're going to explore this. So we're going to be looking at the heart of Western astrology. At the heart of astrology, there is a divine jewel that shines the true light of life. Astrologers do not know the jewel. They don't have its structure. Although everything we understand about astrology comes from the jewel. Astrology still hasn't seen the structure of the jewel. They haven't seen the jewel. The unknown jewel is the heart of astrology. I will present this jewel heart in this presentation. Everything we can understand about astrology comes from the divine heart. It is the origin of astrology, as well as acupuncture. It is through the divine heart that we live. It is through the jewel heart that we will know God, because it is our direct connection with God. Astrology still doesn't know God. Astrology must discover its own heart to know God. So let's proceed. Well, here we are in China, and we're looking at a statue in front of the Imperial Palace in Beijing, China. And there's a tiger with its paw on top of a sphere. And the sphere has a pattern around it, which is known as the flower of life. It's a pattern of 6 points around in a circle, and these circles are intertwined in a pattern around the sphere. And this particular statue has a very, very profound spiritual meaning. So we're going to use this pattern as one of the patterns to guide us in finding that spherical pattern at the heart of astrology and acupuncture. So here again, we see the flower of life, the pattern for the flower of life, and to the right, the pattern for the seed of life, which consists of 6 circles around a center circle. The flower of life represents the cycle of creation. It is believed that there is a secret symbol hidden within the symbol that contains the most significant and sacred patterns in the universe. Well, I'm going to show those to you in this presentation. I'm going to show you these most significant and sacred patterns within this. I'm going to reveal the complexity of the spherical pattern that these are supposed to represent. So now let's look at the creation of a human being. We first start in a state with God. Our spirit being projects a ray of divine light through a spherical matrix that contains the human form, the human idea. It is the seed of human life. We become a self-aware soul with a permanent personality. So this talks about the very first moments of creating a human being. You can even look at the Bible where it talks about Adam and Eve eating an apple. And by eating that apple, they become to know that they are naked, and they begin to know good and bad, pain and happiness. That apple represents a spherical matrix. Its structure, spherical. Now to incarnate our soul with its permanent personality around the spherical matrix projects a ray of itself in the worlds of existence and forms a temporary personality. We are all temporary personalities. We have our names, we have our houses, we have our lives, where we live, our identities, our histories, our pasts, our futures. This is our temporary personality. The task of a permanent personality with the soul around the spherical matrix is to select and supervise the lives and experiences of temporary personalities. Where does this knowledge come from? It comes from Stylianos Ateshlis, who was a mystic who lived in Cyprus in the 1900s. Here is a saying from Stylianos Ateshlis. Truth is a bright, many-sided diamond. The immense light floods this jewel and its colors flash on each side. Mystics, messengers, sages, and teachers of all times, races, and beliefs have spoken of a different facet of this common and eternal truth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this diamond, this jewel, this heart, and we're going to realize that astrology has seen one aspect of it. Acupuncture has seen another aspect of it. So we should be able to, within the both of them, find this original structure. And we can. That's what this presentation is going to show. So the human form requires 3 bodies with their different consciousness. There's a mental body, emotional body, and a physical body. Mystics can leave their physical bodies consciously and go into a dream body, which is the emotional body. And then they can even go beyond that to a mental body. But what is built first is the permanent spherical matrix that contains the design of the human form. Just as a seed contains the shape of the tree it gives rise to, the 3 bodies and their consciousness are within and develop from the spherical matrix to embody a temporary life. We see 4 states. There's one permanent state in the center, which represents the spherical matrix. And then we see 3 temporary ones projecting from it, with the spherical matrix as the center, with the soul. The permanent personality with the spherical matrix does not feel separated from God. But once it projects these temporary personalities with the 3 bodies, it feels separated from God. The soul and its permanent personality depend on the structure of the spherical matrix. Its structure is the basis for building our temporary lives and the 3 bodies and the temporary personality. Can we find the structure of the spherical matrix within the symbols of astrology and acupuncture? Yes. The 2 philosophies use 12 symbols in different ways. We will be able to see the divine pattern of the spherical matrix within both. It would be a great advance to connect the symbols of the 2 with the original and eternal structure of life, like we see in the flower of life and the seed of life. This hasn't been done yet. Let's proceed. We will discover the divine pattern of the spherical matrix that unifies the symbols of astrology and acupuncture. The symbols that guide us have the symmetry of 6. They are spherical. They are in 4 states. First we see the flower of life with its pattern of 6 petals on a flower, and the seed of life with its 6 circles. And then we see the spherical matrix of the heart, which comes from Stylianos Sateschlis, the mystic that lived in the 1900s. This was his symbol to represent that spherical matrix of the heart. And you can see how it is similar to the symbols for the flower of life and the seed of life, as 6 points in a circular pattern. In 3 dimensions it becomes a sphere. So now let's start with Western astrology. And what we know is we have the zodiac has 12 signs to express life. The 12 signs have an order. Here we see Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the way to Pisces. This is the order of the zodiac signs. So now we have planets and signs. And that we can see is that the signs correspond to certain planets. In the first case, we see Aries corresponds to the planet Mars. The sign Taurus corresponds to the planet Earth. The sign Gemini corresponds to the planet Mercury, and so on. So we see these correspondences. Each planet represents the archetype of the sign. So we know that there are signs, and each sign has its planet. Let's go from here. So first we're going to see the order of the signs around this circle. From Aries, the order begins with Aries and proceeds to Pisces. We can see it going around the circle. Now we're going to order the planets. So we place the planets in the places of the signs. So first we see the signs of the zodiac from Aries around the circle all the way to Pisces. And now we're just going to replace them with their planets, the planets that are associated with each sign. So now we have an order. We're going to do a reflection across the horizon. So the planets form pairs across the horizon. So we see this order of the planets, which is simply representing the order of the zodiac signs. And each planet is in the place of its zodiac sign. But the planets are different. The planets represent a different state of expression. The planets are representing emotions, the emotional state. So they're going to take on a different order. How do we find that different order for the planets? So we will use these pairs that you see here. Like in the first pair to the left, Mars and Neptune form a pair. And then the Earth and Uranus form a pair. We're going to use these pairs to form the next symmetry. So here we're going to order the planets. First, we're going to see the order of the exterior planets, from Jupiter to Saturn to Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These are the planets beyond the asteroid belt. And so we see this order from Jupiter to Pluto. We're going to mirror the pairs in the previous slide to see an order of the inner planets. So now we see that the pairs, like for example Mars and Neptune, the Earth and Uranus, those pairs are still existing, but now we see that they place the inner planets in another order, from Sun, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. So now we're going to see a complete order: Sun, Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, as a new order for the planets. So here we now see it, that we have an order for the interior planets and an order for the exterior planets, all in one circular order. So here we have a new order of the planets, from Sun all the way to Pluto. We see this new order. This is not within the body of knowledge of astrology. This is something which can exist when looking at the reflective symbols, when you're reflecting the symbols across that horizon. So now we have it. We have the orders for planets and signs. On the left we have the order of the signs. On the right we have the order of the planets. What can we do with these two orders that will lead us towards the spherical matrix of life, the flower of life, the seed of life, that great diamond that's a truth that many mystics and sages have talked about through the ages? How can we use these two orders to find that? Well, we're going to do a pattern of transformation. You can see that Aries has transformed into Mars, its corresponding planet. We can see that Taurus has transformed into Earth, its corresponding planet, in the different order. So we follow these lines and we can see this pattern of transformation between the two orders. We're beginning to unlock an expression of life, a deep expression of life. Let's keep going because this is going to go farther and deeper. I'm going to take these symbols and replace them with numbers so that we can extend this transformation. So Aries is going to become 1 and Mars is going to become 1 because that's the first archetype. So you'll see these numbers matching up. So the first order goes 1 to 12, and then the second order represents the order of the planets with its associated archetype of the sign. So 1 follows the line to 1, 2 follows the arrow to 2, 5 follows the arrow to 5, and so on. So we see this. So now we're going to extend this transformation. We're going to see a third order. We're going to see a fourth order. And that fourth order transforms back into the original order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 12. So here we're having 4 orders within the symbology of astrology. We're seeing this. What does this mean? These orders are within the structure of signs and planets. When we combine them, when we see how they are associated by reflecting across a horizon. What does this mean? Where will this take us? Here we see it. That original order returns to itself. We see 4 states of the human form. Remember where we talked about at the beginning. There's the permanent eternal state of the spherical matrix with the soul. And it projects 3 bodies: an emotional body, a mental body, and a physical body. And then those bodies have their own stories, their own developments. And these orders of the archetypes define the development of each body. So here we have it. We're beginning to see where we're going. So what do we see? We see a new order for the planets. We see two other orders. I'm not going to explain the two other orders in this presentation. I have other videos for that. The four orders transform from one to another in a cycle that reflects the four states of a human form. Okay, so now we are going to explore the four orders and see all the principles of acupuncture within them. So we go to acupuncture, the 6 elements of acupuncture. Most people know the 5 elements of acupuncture: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. But when you really begin to understand the depth of acupuncture, you see a 6th element, seed. I have other videos that explain the element seed and why it is a different element. Now the 5-element model is within the 6-element model. This you can see. The order of the elements of the 5 elements is still within the 6-element model, with seed between water and wood. I'm not going to explain the seed element at this point. I'm just going to say I'm going to take 6 elements. Within the 6 elements is the 5-element model of current acupuncture. It's not to say that the 5-element theory is the end-all, the complete system of elements. No, there are more elements. And actually there are even more elements than 6 elements when you begin to really look at it. But at least we're going to go with 6 elements, because that fits the patterns that we're looking for of a spherical pattern based upon 6 points, based upon 6. 2 triangles coming together, like in this symbol that we see down to the left. And we also see within 6 elements, we see 2 triangles coming together, a blue triangle and a red triangle. The blue triangle are the yin elements, the red triangle are the yang elements, and they come together to form 6 elements. So we have this basic model of 6 elements. Now, elements are the various conditions of the substance of existence. Existence has a substance, and we can take this substance and create elements in different states. Wood is a very special element because it's growing, it's living, it's developing. Fire has its own power. Water has its own power in a very different way. The seed element is also a state of the substance of existence. It is a state of holding within itself in homeostasis in a static pattern that can last for years and years and years, the state of being without developing. And everything is held within there in that state until it is awakened into the element wood and it grows. Understanding the seed element is essential to understanding how life is created. I'm not going to go into that deeper here in this presentation, just want to say that. So now we're going to look at the correspondence with meridians. We have our planets from Western astrology, we have the signs from Western astrology, and now we're going to bring in the elements from acupuncture. And we're going to bring in the meridians from acupuncture. And this is a table of their correspondences. And we're going to use these correspondences in those 4 orders that were being transformed within a cycle of transformation in Western astrology. Let's continue. So remember the 4 orders. We see the numbers going through. Each of those numbers represents one of the 12 archetypes and how that archetype moves through the different orders. Now we're going to put in the 6 elements of acupuncture: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, and seed. And we're going to see them move between the orders. Now what we're going to do right now is we're going to take all these orders that we see, these 4 orders on the screen, we're going to take all of them and blend them into one pattern, and that one pattern is going to show us what all these 4 orders are doing. So the 4 orders taken all together in one pattern is the 6-element model. So the 4 orders in Western astrology have within it the 6 elements of acupuncture. So now we can see that the 4 orders contain the models for 4 elements, which is from Western astrology, is based on 4 elements. We can also see that it's based on 6 elements, and within those 6 elements is the 5-element theory. So within the 4 orders of Western astrology, we're already seeing models for 4, 5, and 6 elements. And we can see that these two triangles coming together represent that pattern, that symbol that Stylianos Ateshlis used as a mystic to understand the deep pattern, that deep spherical matrix at the center of life. Let's keep going. So now we're going to take the 12 meridians of acupuncture. Before we just looked at the 6 elements going into the 4 orders. Now we're going to be able to put the 12 meridians of acupuncture into those 4 orders. And each of those 12 meridians is going to correspond to a different archetype from the original astrological sign that created those 4 orders in astrology. So now we're going to go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. So first we're going to place the 12 meridians in those 4 orders. And each of those meridians corresponds to an element, but we already looked at those elements. Now we're splitting the elements into their particular meridians. So we're seeing all 12 meridians flowing and moving from order to order according to that original pattern of transformation between the 4 orders. The 12 meridians are going to flow in the sphere. So we're going to take all those 4 orders and blend them, integrate them together in one 3-dimensional spherical pattern. So here we're going through the orders right now. And these arrows are going around the sphere as they're moving. Now the red circles are in the front of the sphere. The yellow circles are in the back of the sphere. And the red lines that you see in the center there pass through the center of the sphere. Those are very important lines in the theories of acupuncture. That those particular meridians that are connected to those red dotted lines in the center, those particular meridians, if they separate, it's known as death in acupuncture. The idea is to keep the structure of this matrix together. And it is very important to maintain those red dotted lines that go through the center. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. I just wanted to mention that, just so you can see some of the ideas connected into here. So keep in mind that each of these meridian symbols is associated with an archetype of astrology. You see the meridians going around the sphere, but each of those meridians is associated with astrology. So the astrology is actually going around this sphere. So now let's look at this. The 12 symbols of astrology and acupuncture are around the sphere. We see the 12 symbols of astrology and acupuncture around the spherical matrix. We have integrated the 12 symbols of East and West into one spherical pattern of life. Take a moment just to look at this and understand and realize what this is. What we're seeing is the seed of life. On the right above, we see the seed of life. We see that pattern of the seed of life. And below it, we see another way of viewing the seed of life. Those dots were at the intersection points within the seed of life. And then on the left, we can see that seed of life pattern superimposed upon the spherical matrix, the spherical pattern at the heart of astrology and acupuncture. And we can see how this all relates to the image, the pattern of Stylianos Ateshlis in the lower left corner, where you have 2 triangles coming together in a circular spherical orientation. So now we're going to see the full integration of all symmetries and relationships. It is the jewel that shines eternally at the center of each being. Just imagine a diamond with different facets and an internal structure of chemistry, of molecules. And these have relationships, and light is passing through it. It creates rainbows of colors. It creates rainbows of personalities. It creates rainbows of consciousness. It creates rainbows of different life expressions of how to live life. But it's all one structure. That is a spherical matrix upon which we can construct an infinite number of expressions of life, creating the sphere. So we see the elements here and the meridians of yin. In this blue cone, we see that this is, you see the sphere here, but within that sphere there's a cone where you have the certain meridians, spleen, gallbladder, bladder, stomach, and liver up there in blue at the top of the cone, and it comes down to a point at kidney down below. That's one cone inside the sphere. And this represents the elements of wood, earth, and water, which are the yin elements. And now we're going to also see there's a red cone that represents the elements and meridians of yang. So the elements are fire, metal, and seed, and their meridians, large intestine, pericardium, lung, sanjiao, small intestine, and at the point, heart. Why am I showing you this? Because you're going to unify these two cones. The yin cone unifies with the yang cone. And this is the original embrace. They come together to form the sphere, these two cones. Now let's look at this a little closer. We're unifying yin and yang. At the point of the yang cone is heart. At the point of the yin cone is kidney. What are we seeing here? What symbol in the world shows the unification of yin and yang and includes points for the heart and kidney? The symbol of yin yang. The most profound symbol of acupuncture and its spirituality is within the four orders of Western astrology. We now see a complete integration of West and East. This integration was necessary to confirm a final pattern in the evolution of spiritual symbols. We have reached the final model. We can now see that the yin-yang symbol is within Western astrology, and we can show the pattern exactly how to get to there. We can show the signs, how they relate to the planets, and then how those two orders for signs and planets develop into two other orders, and those four orders then represent everything within astrology, everything within the four states of a human being, and all of the principles within 6-element theory, 5-element theory, and acupuncture, and the meridians, all of the theories, meridian theory, everything within those symbols, everything is contained within those symbols to take us directly to the yin-yang symbol of acupuncture. Now here's a verse from the Yueji and the Liji. This is around 200 AC. So this is a verse from a book from China. From the first moment of existence, remember we talked about the creation of a human being, of human life. The heart is in a place of the most absolute calm. Now imagine the spherical matrix as a diamond just sitting there in absolute calm. As Stiliano Sateshli says, the light comes through this diamond and creates life, the multifaceted expressions of life. But here in China, we're seeing the heart is in a place of the most absolute calm. It is free from all desire. So just imagine that spherical matrix, that structure at the base of acupuncture, that at the base of astrology, of personalities, sitting there in the absolute calm. Heaven creates it in this state. Soon external objects act on it and produce various movements, vibrations, reactions, consciousness, knowledge. These are desires that add to its nature, to its original state. We're now developing the divine plan of why we live a temporary life when we are, in essence, spirit with God. In the presence of external objects, a person has the desire to know them. This is the nature of the spherical matrix, and its permanent personality is to want to know life. So as we begin to know the external objects around us, we experience feelings of attraction for some and feelings of repulsion for others. If a person does not control these feelings, they allow themselves to be attracted to external things and become unable to return within themselves and to regulate the movements of the heart, that original state in absolute calm. We get caught up in all the wild movements of life, the colors, the sounds, the stories, ups and downs, and we lose that original peace. But we're living our story. That's the divine plan. But we get disconnected. We feel separated from God. So a person loses the good tendencies of the heart, those good spiritual tendencies, in consciousness with God. We lose those as we get caught up in the external objects of life. We lose those good tendencies of the heart which were originally received from heaven. We see in this one verse the story of the spherical matrix with its consciousness producing temporary personalities in different states of mental abilities, emotional abilities, and physical abilities to live life. We're seeing it all here in this one verse. So just in conclusion, all the perfections seen in the four orders of astrology include all the principles of astrology, acupuncture, and the spherical matrix of the human form. Astrology is now spiritually complete when you see it from this perspective. Astrology has a heart with God. So just to finish up here, we're going to once again read the statement from Stylianos Ateshlis. Truth is a bright, many-sided diamond. The immense light floods this jewel, and its colors flash on each side. Mystics, messengers, sages, and teachers of all times, races, and beliefs have spoken of a different facet of this common and eternal truth. And as we now look through all of these images, we can see how they're all connected and related and are all leading in different paths, different facets, different aspects of the one original diamond, that spherical matrix that the light of God shines through to project a life story. We're seeing in all of these images the connections. We're seeing within the seed of life, which was supposed to have a hidden structure, a hidden pattern for the deep inner structures of life. And we see that in the spherical pattern, through the four orders, through the 12 meridians, through the elements. All of it comes together to explain life, to describe life,